Thank you for listening to the Tattness podcast on the Tattness Co. Network.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, a Mercedes kind of sentiment, luxury and trust in me to honor the free we all should be. It seems my sundial burst into yin and yang, right and left me.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Tattness podcast. It's your boy Tattness. I am stoked. I honestly have been having the fucking widest variety of guests lately. And it's no coincidence. I'm a little late posting this one, sort of, maybe, not really. I mean, depends on your definition. In terms of, when the show was recorded, sure. But the goal was to actually pre-record all these shows and then release them individually, a couple every week. And I ended up with so many guests that I actually had to hold back some and just release a whole shit ton. And that's probably why you may have noticed before my little 3-day vacation, much needed, by the way, that I had released a pant load of fucking guests and shows. And it was really cool. I mean, you guys responded amazingly, as always. And it's cool. I appreciate that, and I'm glad I could give you some content to consume during this pandemic and all this crazy shit. It's a weird time. It really is, and I get that. I've also been doing some guest spots. I was on the Suck It podcast, which is fucking super dope. You may have heard that I have been acknowledged graciously. I'm so grateful. I've been acknowledged by the New York Times, New York Weekly Times, and LA Times, and what have you, as the number 10 show out of the top 50 in the world. Dude, the honor is unreal. And then, of course, Celebrity Zone, an article. I've got an interview coming up. I mean, none of this shit's new to me, dude. I've been a fucking quote-unquote celebrity for like 4 years now. But it's always an honor. I'm always grateful for every bit of acknowledgement. I know how quickly this shit can fade, and I'm, 4 years strong now, living this crazy life, and none of it's owed to me. So I'm always grateful. And, I just wanted to give a shout out to all of that. I think it's cool to all those people that have acknowledged me in such a way. I'm grateful. I'm just honored, honestly. I can't say that enough, so I'll just shut the hell up. My guest tonight, that you're hearing anyway, it's already pre-recorded, but Rocky Kramer. This cat is definitely an interesting breed of dude, and I say that in the most complimentary way, because he is somebody who's born in the 90s. He's a musician born in the 90s who is so heavily influenced by 80s rock that it's really cool to see. You don't come across too many of those cats that are a little bit more appreciative of the time or the decade before them. Not these days. A lot of people don't do their homework. Not a lot of people do their history research and see what came before. And he just doesn't seem to resonate too much with 90s music. Not that he hates it or he's not putting it down in any way. It's just, it seems that he's an 80s soul, I feel. And there's something about the 80s that just, he's drawn to. And he's had an interesting life, too. So I suggest you look it up. And apparently my cat wants to be on the show. That's quite frequent. So my bad. But check this show out, because he's an interesting cat, and we actually talk about the whole Napster thing and how the music industry has changed from his perspective as a musician, and the fact that equipment, instruments are not cheap, and there's not a lot of money to be made in the music industry anymore. And I know people roll their eyes at that, but get in the industry and then try to tell me otherwise. You know what I'm saying? I think he could probably tell you how it really is. So we get into that. So check it out, and I hope you dig it. So how's it going, brother?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right, man. A little technical difficulties, but otherwise, all day it's been fine. So
Yeah. Where are you?
I'm in Canada, so
Oh, you're in Canada. Okay.
yeah,
So
it's
you don't have a heat wave.
it's hot, man. It's hot.
Oh,
It,
okay. Okay,
it's
it is.
been, yeah, it's been really brutal. Usually on several days recently, it's been about the same as California. So
Really? Okay.
yeah, so it's been pretty hot, pretty brutal. But I hate winter, so I'll take this.
Right. Yeah. Well, hey, it'll be over soon.
Right, knowing my luck, I'm going camping on the 11th, so it'll probably be
Okay.
freezing then,
Oh yeah.
Knowing my luck, it'll be nice all the way up until then.
They were saying in Colorado that it's gonna snow, so it's gonna be a heat wave and snow the next day.
Really?
That's so crazy.
That's nuts. Yeah, that's nuts. How do you prepare for that? It gets like that here too sometimes, where the weather changes so much that you don't know how to dress each day. It's kind of check before you do anything kind of deal.
Oh yeah.
So you were born in the 90s, eh?
Oh yes, I am.
That's funny. My producer is born in 90 and
Okay.
gets really bummed out whenever realizing how much he missed in the 80s, right?
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
I never got to experience the 80s.
I
I wish I did.
Yeah, I was born 83, so I mean, I got to
Okay, so you get to experience as a little boy.
yeah, it was cool, and all the things that we had back then that once the 90s hit were gone. It's like, really? It just phased out, you know what I mean? All these cool things.
Yeah.
And that's brutal because it's like you miss those things, but then you're talking to someone that's never actually even experienced them because they weren't around yet. So they're like, man, I missed the 80s. It's like, I wanted to live in the time, that all the cool stuff was coming out. But it was a blast, dude. And you're heavily influenced by 80s music by the sounds of things, right? So
Yeah, I am. So I kind of wish I got to experience it, because what I've noticed is that with the 80s, even the music that I haven't heard, like I'll hear it on, there's like an 80s channel on Sirius XM, and it'll play songs I never heard before, and it's still great. Like if I hear a song from now, like a current song that I haven't heard, I probably won't like it. But back then, it was like anything from that era. I just, it's easy for me to like. I just like the production. I like the ideas they had back then.
It's so different. Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of futuristic in a way. Like everything, like the movies too, like the Terminator and all those things. It was just, it felt like this is like going somewhere, and then the 90s hit, and everything went to whoosh, so
it's so true. It just completely changed gradually in the 90s. And Terminator was awesome, and the second one was awesome too. But it just became I think in the 80s people bought in more, like that could be how it ends up. And then by the 90s you figure it's not that far off. It's not even close.
Yeah, I think that when people in the past were predicting the future, there was always these crazy things and the flying cars and everything. And
right.
Now that we're in 2020, and it's almost the same as the year 2000. Like it is not that different. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we have smartphones and so on, but there's little things. We got better computers, but not necessarily. It's not a big difference. It's just a little bit better improvements. No, that's about it.
Yeah, it really is just kind of gradual upgrades, but nothing, so out there like we thought it would be like the Jetsons,
Right. Yeah, I remember watching the Jetsons growing up. I was thinking, it's not going to be like that, is it? And I was thinking maybe it would be, but nope.
Not even close. It just blows.
Not even close.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hey, we had the coolest stuff in the 80s, man. And it was just more, the one thing I miss about it is when you were hanging out with somebody, you actually hung out with that person.
Yeah, you're not on your phone. You know, like,
Right, it's not so mind numbing. It's like you had their undivided attention. And now, I felt like I was saying to somebody, um, I feel like the huge contrast there is that these days, you don't back in the 80s, if you want to know how someone's doing or what's going on with them, you just call them. You pick up
yeah.
your phone and you call them. Now it's like you can scroll through their status posts and be like, okay, I'm all caught up. I don't even need to talk to the person.
Right. It's everybody's a kind of a celebrity. Like you're reading about them, but you're not actually communicating with them.
Right.
You know what they're doing, but they don't know necessarily that unless you like and comment and things like that. But yeah, it's a different world in that sense.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's just kind of like it's become so antisocial that efficiency is more important to people than connections. You know what I mean? It's like you don't really talk to people anymore, no matter how long you've known them.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why. Why are we here? Why is it like that? I mean, I guess everybody wants to have a lot of followers and a lot of likes, and it's like we're addicted to like this small amount of fame. Like that's what we want. We want likes and comments and things like that and followers. But I think there's more to life than that. I mean, it can't just be about social media. There's a world out there to explore.
And you're not going to do it from your couch. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I mean, there's a big difference between looking at a beautiful waterfall on your phone and actually seeing it in real life. There's a lot of things that is a big difference. It's like every time there's fireworks, whether it's New Year's Eve or 4th of July here, it's like looking at fireworks on your phone is just nothing compared to seeing it in real life. Anything that has to do with the sky, like northern lights and stuff like that, is just much prettier in person.
Right, and it's so funny to me because it's like you wouldn't, with friends and whatnot, it's very much like I'll just scroll through their posts and now I'm caught up. I don't even need to contact them. No big deal. But it's like you wouldn't, if you decided, I want to go to Jamaica or something, you're not going to hit Google Maps and look through, the pictures and just be like, or Street View and be like, I'm good now. I got that out of my...
Yeah, that's it. I'm satisfied.
Right.
I'm going to watch a video for 10 minutes and that's my vacation.
Right. So weird how it's like, but you're right. It's exactly that. And I'm like, be careful what you wish for, man. I literally all day have been getting friend requests from complete strangers that, listen to the show or know me from other things.
Right.
It's just like, it's weird, and to sit there and see like every 5 minutes, you got like 3 or 4 more requests out of nowhere. And it's like, okay, that's different, and people want that, but you want to have any contact with like anybody at the same time. It's like an ego stroke, you know what I mean? That's all it really seems to be.
Yeah, it's weird because I get a lot of friend requests too. I usually ignore them. There's a few times where I've just accepted it because they had a mutual friend or something, and I don't know who they are, and I guess they know who I am, but they never talk to me. Like they want to be my friend on Facebook or something, but they never actually talk or anything. So why even bother? I mean, it makes no sense to me.
Yeah, they're just lurkers that just kind of hang out and like monitor your profile, but don't actually speak to you.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's the weirdest thing.
Whatever,
That's why it's like, okay, I'm gonna have like a personal private page and then kind of a page for like random fans to just add or whatever makes them happy, and just kind of keep my personal business off of it, and so you just want to kind of hang out and like a ghost and just lurk and never say anything. Have fun. I mean,
go ahead.
It does nothing for me, but I've never been one of those like numbers freaks. I need 7 bajillion friends or else I'm, it's a popularity contest. I just never subscribed to. It's funny. I went from having like 25 people on my friends list to all of a sudden I've got like 40 plus requests in the last 2 days, and it's like, what the hell is going on?
Hey, it's strange. It's a strange world.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, especially when it's like, social media like that, because I mean, we have Instagram and things like that. That's really for that purpose, or Twitter, or whatever. But it's like Facebook's kind of a little more personal. You tend to post your personal things, and I don't know. It's just really weird. Like, people want a piece of it. And then when you see who's adding you, it's always like they have a radio show, or they're, a musician. There's something in it for them,
It's business, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
They want something from you.
Right. And it's funny, and it's like, man, that's really weird to me, but okay. I'm fine with it. It's when they start hitting you up in your inbox with like scams of, comment this and we'll give you like $3,000. And I'm like, we're not, how about no?
No, thank you.
I don't see anybody just jumping in and be like, hey, you want some free money? Yeah, okay. Not buying it. And then when
there's no such thing.
Right. And then you politely respond and just be like, no, I'm good. I don't need
Yeah. That's nice of you, but I'm going to let someone else have that.
Right. Give it to someone. I literally said that. I'm like, hopefully somebody gets it that really needs it. And then they send me like screenshots of money being transferred to someone's account or something. And I'm like, okay, you're obviously not getting it. And it's probably like kind of spam bot or something. So I'm just like, all right, you're blocked.
Bye-bye.
Right. I tend to, accept requests and things because I don't want to be that guy, right? Where people are like, what a dick. Like stuck, and just stuck up or whatever. And it's like, you support what I do. I appreciate it. But don't send me crap like that. That's just weird. And it's not really, there's no place for it. It's just, you don't know if you're dealing with a real person, if it's a scam artist, or if it's like one of those bots that are just automated. It's just weird. And it's
I get a lot of those on Instagram. It's like they have no followers, no posts,
right,
and then they're like, hey,
right, every day,
bye.
Right, like 6 times a day. And
I get a lot of those.
Or there's a link involved, that it's like, no.
Yeah, click this link to get free money.
Right. What? Yeah, okay. Where were you like when I was broke? When I couldn't feed myself back in the day, like where was all this free money then? It's kind of like the 80s where they tell you all these people are going to offer you free drugs. Spoiler alert, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Nothing's free.
No.
It's just bizarre. It's like, but the sad thing is people do fall for it.
Yes.
They
do. And in the case of drugs, then it's probably better to not do it in the first place. So.
Right. Yeah. But the money scams. It's always somebody that wants something that's going to be quick to be like, oh, cool, I'll accept this. Just give me your info. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I guess some people are just very willing to give out their personal information, and I don't know why they think that if they say I'm going to give you $1 billion, all you have to do is give me $300. Why would you think that that's a good transaction?
Right.
That doesn't make any sense.
That's a fair trade, right?
It's like, well, if you have $1 billion, then you can. Whatever those bank fees are, you can afford them,
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
No, but people are so, some people just are so clinging to that wanting something for nothing that common sense goes out the window.
It's the people that buy lottery tickets.
Yeah,
And, I guess in the U.S. it's the people that sue people for no reason.
That's insane, isn't it? And the reason why is because there's no risk. There's so many people that are like, you don't pay unless you win.
Right.
So,
It's
what do you got to lose?
Yeah, it's wild.
It's like, you looked at me in a way I didn't care for. Lawsuit. It's stupid.
Yeah. We made eye contact.
Right.
Get out of here.
How dare you?
Yeah.
You'll be hearing from my Right. Like you'll be hearing from my lawyer, sir. Really? They forgot to put cheese on my burger. Lawsuit. It's so stupid.
Oh boy.
I had Ron Russell on the other day, and we were talking about Walmart being so screwed up, and just the things you see when you go to that place. It's like, really? it's
a jungle for sure. Yeah, it's a different. It's like you're entering a different universe. It's like a parallel universe,
right?
Where there's no shame.
None whatsoever.
I've seen a lot. The worst things I've seen, I haven't seen in person, but I've seen people post stuff on the internet that is like, what?
Yeah.
People actually walk around like that, or they do that, or whatever.
And there's nothing that surprises you anymore.
Yeah, I think that's the era we're in. It's just nothing. Like everything, no matter how crazy it is, it's like, oh, okay. It's not like, oh my god.
Because in 10 minutes you'll see something worse. So.
That's true. There's always something worse.
It's like
always.
You see it the second you walk in the doors. If you go down a few aisles, you're gonna see much worse. It's just a matter of when. So, but it's so weird, and I don't know. The U.S. has that in common with us. I think it's just not as crazy here, but you still see some things that you're just like, why did someone think this was okay?
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. But that's the way people are.
Right.
They just they feel comfortable in their own skin.
Or just giving up on life, man. Like just done.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming that in some cases there are either mental issues or they might be struggling with drugs or something. But whatever. I don't know.
It used to be only like people that were like in their 90s or something that were like, who cares at this point? Like, you just stop caring. Right? But now it's like people in their 20s, and it's like, really? That's insane.
Yeah.
But they think that's just fine. It started with the pajama pants in public thing.
It's funny when you look at old photos like from the early 20th century and so on. It's just seeing how nice people dressed when they were at least out in public. Like almost everybody's in a suit or they've got a hat on. Like they're all looking respectable. And then we just slowly got worse and worse.
Right.
Where it's like it's all pajamas and barely. You barely got pants on, or you might have no shirt or no shoes, or it's just I don't know. It's a weird development of society.
Yeah, I mean, like by mid to late 90s, people would kind of crack up at 80s fashion and make fun of it. And now by 2020, it's like you have no place to say anything because if you look around in 2020. It's like the 80s are looking pretty decent in comparison.
Yeah, it seems like anything is allowed now.
Yeah,
it's you can wear whatever you want.
It's been crazy too. Growing up in the 80s and then like majority of these musicians sitting down and talking to them on my show. It's like, what a trip. You know what I mean? There's been some really cool guests on my show that you never would have thought in a million years. And I don't think I've had too many people from the 90s yet, but I mean, that kind of speaks volumes, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on, I mean, do you have any favorites in terms of like 90s bands or artists or anything? I mean, what was good?
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, but the 80s were just like, you still listen to it today and still, has that respect that it's hard to say in another 30 years or so if we're going to feel that way about anything from the 90s. It's, I guess we won't know.
Yeah.
Enough time.
I feel like the 90s maybe it was good at the time, but it just didn't age as well as the 80s stuff, because I know a lot of people there are a lot of people that like the 90s music and the grunge and so on, but to me it doesn't make as much sense as the 80s. It has a certain sound to it, and I can understand why some people like that. I noticed I was listening to some I guess it was Alice in Chains, and I was listening to it on YouTube, and they were looking at the comments, and all the comments were basically saying, "This is great when you're on drugs." You know, it's like, okay, so I guess there is like, okay, there's an audience that likes it for like a certain purpose, but just listening to it on its own is maybe not, at least not what I would listen to. I would prefer listening to something that's from the 80s or 70s or something, because I just thought the production value was better. Like, I feel like they really put a lot of heart and soul into it, whereas the 90s was maybe more, I don't know, more desperate.
Yeah, there's
trying to be different.
Yeah, there's definitely a different mood too, I think, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing.
Yeah, versus the 80s were just about getting like wrecked. You know what I mean? Just
it was more party music, you know, like getting your energy, and it's just fun, more fun.
Right, 80s stuff is like the party music, and like 90s is more the hangover music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the 90s was the decade of the hangover. It was the hangover from the 80s.
Right. You know, it's like when you felt like absolute garbage, but the night before was awesome. You know?
Yeah, it's like I remember some of it, but I don't know what happened for the most part.
Those are usually the best nights too. And you know, it's funny how some things haven't changed. You know, I think like weed use and things like that is still.
Right.
I don't know how big it was necessarily in the 80s. I know Coke was kind of a bigger deal in the 80s, obviously.
It was more about the Coke, I think, yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, that just boosted people's egos like a bajillion %. So,
yeah.
Whereas weed became more people's go-to because it mellows you out, right? You don't end up being a dick and like,
right.
You know, being so egotistic.
Yeah. I think that if you have to choose something, then it's better to do the weed, because it's more. It doesn't create a lot of problems. It's just people just get relaxed, and you know, they don't bother you.
Right.
On weed, you know, it's not a problem.
No, I mean, weed's natural. I got no problem with that whatsoever. And now I'm legal, so you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Certain states, I know they're still not quite there yet, which seems really strange.
They'll get there eventually, I think.
Yeah, here it's across the board. It's like everywhere. You know, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Legal. And you get dispensaries that will like deliver it to your door. You know, it's yeah.
That's awesome, right? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you shoot them a text and they tell you what they got for the day, and then you just order it. You send them an e-transfer and they bring it to your door.
Yeah.
So, you know, no shady people, no you know, risks of it being laced with anything. You never know, right? But,
right. Yeah, and you don't get ripped off.
Right. I think
they don't give you any oregano or some green looking stuff, you know.
Right. Something they found under their couch.
Yeah.
Dryer lint. Their green
What's
sweater.
this?
Yeah, I think it was Scott Page I was talking to, or somebody recently, and I said it's kind of funny that my show's producer and I went out one night. We went for a walk and just kind of smoked a joint just to mellow out after a rough week. And I was wearing a leather jacket, you know, it was dark out. And I was like, leather jacket, and I'm smoking a joint while out on the street at night. I'm like, I am the dude that the 80s warned me as a kid to stay away from and never talk to. I was like, this is weird.
Oh, no.
You know, it's like that.
It's him.
Right. That was the stereotypical like person in the 80s that they tried to tell you to avoid, that's going to randomly appear at night on the street and offer you free drugs.
Yeah. I think, weren't there commercials or something with like those type of characters?
Yeah. It's so weird. I'm like, that literally never happened in my life.
Yeah. It's just not reality, I think.
Right. It's like you almost feel cheated. Like, Where's the free weed guy when I need him?
Yeah. Can I get his phone number? I mean,
Right. I mean, he's just not.
where is he?
Right. He's just not hanging at the playground anymore. This sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. What happened?
So who would you say your influences are then? Because you obviously love 80s music as much as I do.
Sure. Well, yeah, like a lot of, I think most of it is like 80s music. There's also some 70s music. I am a big Pink Floyd fan, which is probably more like 60s, 70s, and 80s, and so on. That was like the early ones. I love a lot of the 80s guitar players, so like Yngwie Malmsteen and Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, like they were just like, and Randy Rhoads, like they're all changing that guitar sound. Like it was in the 70s, it was all about like Jimmy Page and Ace Frehley and Brian May, and then they just sort of really took it into like a classical direction with Randy Rhoads and those guys just making it just kind of having metal with a classical influence, and I really fell in love with that. So it's, because I have a classical background, so I started on the violin when I was a little boy. So when I started hearing that classical influence, but it was rock, it was guitars, and I love the sound of distorted guitars, and then I just like hearing that combination really inspired me to write my own music in that fashion. Because before that, I was more into like the like Black Sabbath and Ozzy, and I'm a big Kiss fan who took their makeup off in the 80s to just look like everyone else, and then it really didn't work for them because people are like, whoa, that's what they look like.
Yeah,
put it back on. So
yeah, people did not like that at all.
Yeah, that was like they say that it saved their careers, but technically, I think it was a mistake. I really do. I think because that's what the makeup was what made them stand out, and all they needed was a good record. And I think that they were kind of getting lost with like first they made a concept album because they had previously worked with Bob Ezrin, who produced The Wall, and they said, well, why don't you produce, and they produced Destroyer before that for Kiss, and then they said, why don't we make a concept album? And they made The Elder, which is just this very strange sounding album, and Bob Ezrin says, well, I was on a lot of coke, so it's like, okay, so like I didn't know what I was doing, and that's kind of like I think that was more responsible for them like losing that mainstream appeal. Because they were basically becoming every kid's favorite band in the like 1977. So and those kids grew up and they started their own bands, and all of a sudden you had bands like Motley Crue and Bon Jovi and Twisted Sister, and it really changed the sound. I think they had a big influence on that 80s sound, at least in terms of rock and roll. And then you had Michael Jackson doing rock stuff. You had almost every artist were just they all had distorted guitars and guitar solos or saxophone solos.
Right.
Both great. Love saxophone. And just that whole sound to me was really great. I mean, Whitesnake, and I'm a big AC/DC fan, which the interesting thing about AC/DC is that they just never changed their sound.
Right.
They started out with two guitars, bass, drums, and vocals, and they did that the whole time. They never had strings or synthesizers on their records, and it worked for them.
Yeah,
their fans know what they're gonna get. They always know.
I think there's something to be said for sticking to what you know. You know what I mean? And
right.
I'm all
don't want to get too crazy with things.
Right. I'm all for like people in bands like evolving and growing in things of that nature.
Right.
Experimenting is awesome, but
yes.
To do it for the wrong reasons, I think it shows.
Yeah, I think it's very obvious when you're doing it because that's what's popular. It has to come from inside. It has to come from the heart. When you're writing music just to please what's current, what really happens is that by the time you put it out, it's already like people have already moved on to something else.
Exactly.
So I mean, I mean, nowadays it's a little quicker. You can put something out a little quicker than you did before, but it's still it's important to be true to yourself and do something that you believe in, because people can tell. They know when it's you, and they know when it's fake. You know, the fake stuff never lasts.
That's the thing, right? With music especially, I don't think you can get away with it. Where if it's disingenuous and it just seems forced or about money, you know, or it's just following, you know, this worked for someone else, and it's so insincere, you know, I think people see right through that pretty quick. And whereas with movies, things like that, you could tell it's like, okay, they're doing it to make a buck. Why not? You're fine with it. But you don't want that insincerity when it comes to music, because that's what people go to when they're dealing with things. And, you know, it's just something more personal. And when it seems so pre-packaged and fake and just kind of, you know, mass produced, it just seems like, I think with Kiss, like, everyone knows they're about money. Let's be real. You know, they don't hide it. So you're right, to go that route, it did not work for them. And again, it seemed like, oh, this worked for someone else, and look how huge they were. So now, you know, let's do the same thing. And it's like, stay in your lane, dude. That's not what you guys do. And I know because of it too, there was a time where a lot of people said that it was not popular to be a Kiss fan. Like, you were going to get ribbed for that, something fierce. And ragged on for it, because it was just not something you admit to people at that time. And I think that's probably a side effect of kind of going too far left of what they tend to do. But, you know, to your point, I was talking to Scott Page, who played sax for Pink Floyd, and that was awesome. And, you know, he and I had the same conversation where it's like, you can't go too far left of what you do, because people are going to know it's fake, it's disingenuous, and that really offends people. Like, they won't make the mistake of spending their money twice. And now especially, you know, people don't buy anything.
It's hard to get people to spend money nowadays on any type of entertainment. So it's you have to, you know, you have to get it right.
So, I mean, I think across the board for most musicians anyway, it's got to be that concern of how things leak. You know what I mean? And if it's not something you released yourself, it's because you feel it didn't represent you best. You know, it's not a great representative of, or representation of what you do. It's not, you don't feel it's your best work, so you're like, I'm not releasing that. And then it leaks. And then people are like, oh, this isn't for me. And it's like, but that was never supposed to get to you. Like, not everything I feel is going to be good enough. I'm not going to release everything. And then it leaks, and people are like, oh, this, you know, I don't know about this. And it's like, well, that's why it wasn't supposed to be, you know, even put out there, because I didn't like it myself. But people don't know that, right?
Yeah, I feel bad for, you know, with, like, for example, Michael Jackson, that, you know, there's been several Michael Jackson albums that have been released after he died. And there are songs that he didn't necessarily want to release. Like, some of those songs are from the 80s. He's not going to say, oh, I'm just saving that for a special day. Like, and I mean, he intentionally did not release that song, and now it's out, and people could easily say, well, you know, it's not the best or whatever. Some of the songs are actually pretty good, but that maybe because I'm a fan. But all I'm saying is that it didn't have his blessing, and he was all about a song had to have his blessing. And then once he dies, people just put it out and say, okay, here you go. This is what he did that you didn't get to hear. And it's just, I don't know if he would have not been happy about that.
No, I hate that. That seems to happen with anyone that passes. It's like, it's a quick buck for people. They're going to do that with Prince if they haven't done it already. I don't think they have. Maybe. Not yet, and I know he would hate that. Like, he would. Oh, definitely. Like, he was so against that. So. Yeah, he didn't even want people like doing covers of his stuff anymore because he did not want to risk how they would represent it. Right. Yeah. That's rough. Yeah, I remember he did a cover of a Foo Fighter song, and then they asked if they could cover one of his, and he was like, "Nah." He was just like, "Nope," denied. It is like
Uh,
Prince could do that. You know?
well, what's interesting about Prince is that he did his songs were or songs that he wrote were very made popular by other artists, and sometimes he didn't even use his own name. Like it was just you wouldn't know it was Prince, but it was
Right.
Prince. Like it was just
Exactly.
amazing. It was amazing how many songs he wrote that were hits without even his name on them.
Right. And yeah, he finally, I guess, after certain incidents happened, he was just like, all right, screw it. Nobody's covering any of my work anymore just because of,
Yeah.
they cover it. He may not love it. Maybe he doesn't mind it, but then they go and like fall off like the deep end in the media and things. And then it's like, okay, that's who's representing my work. Now I'm good on that. It's not happening. It's not going to happen anymore. And he just became extremely protective of it, and I think that's important. I think that's a clear indicator that it meant something to him.
Yeah, it was very clear that music was, or his own music was very important to him because I mean he did not want his music on streaming services, and basically you couldn't. I don't think you could buy it digitally at all, or maybe you could buy it on iTunes. I'm not sure, but like no Spotify, no Apple Music, and all those things. It was just out of the question. And of course, after he died, guess what showed up on Spotify? His whole catalog.
Right, and I hate what they did too, because if I remember correctly, I think they like opened up his house and everything like a museum.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's invasive as hell, and
Yeah, that's
so distasteful.
It's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, he was obviously a pretty private person, right? And just imagine you spend your whole life just being kind of private and low key and keeping your personal life out of the media. And the second you're gone, it becomes big business to open your front door and just let people roam through your house.
Yeah, it's pretty creepy. But I mean, they did that with Graceland, and that's I would imagine that I'm not sure if what Elvis how he would have felt if he had known that they were just going to turn it into a museum, basically.
Yeah, everything's like a payday for people now. There's nothing off limits, and it's so weird to me.
Yeah,
everything's business. At the
it is, and the business has changed because the way, like at least in the music business, it was about selling records, and that's how you made money. And then you go on tour and you make money, and of course the merchandising started developing over time, and that became a prominent thing. But now that there's no money in the actual music itself, right, you have to think of all these other ways to make money, whether it's meet and greets or I mean any type of merchandise. And of course Kiss, they make any, I mean Kiss coffins, Kiss condoms, they get you coming and they get you going. So it's just it's anything goes, because if you have a certain amount of fans who are very dedicated, who buy anything, then that's your business model. It's very dedicated fans. It's not necessarily that you have a lot of fans. It's like with Kiss, they have a lot of albums. That's why they've sold over 100 million albums, because they have so many of them, and they have a lot of fans that buy all of them. It's right, like 30 albums you can buy. So you don't need as many fans,
right? It's
because you just need a small amount. I mean, they do have a lot of fans. Don't get me wrong, but you just have a certain amount of fans, and they buy everything, whatever it is.
You wouldn't want to put out a record where, like, say 10,000 people buy it first week, and like, this sucks. You want people that are like repeat customers, man. That right, even if it's like half that number. As long as they're going to keep buying what you do, then that's what you want ultimately in business. I mean, and a lot of people don't get that. But music now, to your point, has to be really weird to navigate, because of what you're saying is you can't sell music anymore. Yeah. And then you get this weird headspace of like, man, people are like you go to meet and greets and things like that, and you charge money to sign something or whatever. People are like, "Wow, what the hell is that about? Charging to sign things?" It's like, well, what are you supposed to do to make money at this point? You can't sell your music. It's pretty much open for anyone to just take it, right? So
Yeah.
you have to do something to make a living. And
Yeah.
people forget, like, no matter what you do for a living, even if it seems like a blast, they never stop sending them damn things in the mail called bills, right? So we all gotta pay them,
Right.
and
Yeah.
just because what you do is enjoyable doesn't mean that it's not stressful.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is how expensive it is to be a musician compared
Right.
to how much you get paid. Like every instrument, I mean, in general, I mean, guitars are easily several $1,000s.
Right.
Amplifiers are easily several $1,000s. And then you make what, $15? It's like, okay, let's see. I have no money, and what do I do? So, I mean, you have to charge. You have to find ways to make money that makes sense, but it has to make sense for everybody. I feel iffy about the whole charging $4,000 to meet your hero. Like it seems like a lot. Like it's one thing to have. All it does is basically bring in the people that have the money, not necessarily the biggest fans. It's just the ones with the biggest bank accounts.
Right.
And those are not necessarily the fans that would appreciate meeting you the most.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. For some people, it's just a status thing of like, I can afford to do it, so why not? And
yeah, it's like, oh, I got millions of dollars, so yeah, I'll meet Metallica, sure.
Right.
I mean, I don't care.
Yeah, and the saddest part of that is you're really not going to meet the person that's like, I got into music because of you, and that's
right.
The unfortunate thing, because that's going to mean more to you than that $4,000 or whatever that, at the end of the day. It's nice to have that cash, sure, but it's going to feel pretty empty if there's no like intimate kind of connection with a fan base where you can actually hang with them for a few minutes and talk with them. I know there's a lot of rather huge bands that I know personally that said the thing they missed the most about once they started doing like stadium shows is like, we used to hang out with fans after shows at the clubs and everything. You can't do that with this kind of large scale. There's no way.
True.
Right. You kind of miss it. You feel so inaccessible that it's kind of hard to maintain a fan base at that point, because it's like you feel so out of reach. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's I mean, it's a big difference between playing in front of 50 people and playing in front of 50,000. Like I think James Hetfield was saying that he really loves playing clubs because then you're close with the people. I mean, you can basically smell them. Like they're right there in front of you. You can feel them. You can feel their energy and all that. When you're playing a stadium, there's so much distance between you or between the artist and the fans and the audience that it's like, hello, like you're not close. You don't have that personal connection. And I do like, and I've seen a lot of artists are starting to do this, to have like more ways to get closer to the fans. Like Metallica have like that sort of the thing where it goes down, so they can practically high five the fans if they want to. Like that's nice. Like they have ways to walk through, so they can be a little closer with them. But the idea of hanging out with a band after the show is just not going to happen. Under those circumstances, because there's so many people, and it's a safety issue more than anything else, because there's like one crazy guy who does something, then all of a sudden things go wrong. When you're playing clubs, there's a lot of there might be crazy people there too, but at least a lot of most of the people there are they just want to say hi and chat for a little bit or take a picture, and I mean, I do that all the time, and I think it's nice. I mean, I've never had any bad experiences, but I always have people around me in case something does go wrong. But people are generally very nice, and to them it means a lot just to say hello, and it's better in that sense to do that than to be like, okay, well, you can meet me, but it's gonna cost you,
Right.
you know.
And it's cool to have that appreciation too, that you can hear it from them themselves.
Yeah.
Throughout my MMA career, things like that, I would go to places just as a fan and hang out, and people would come talk to me, and they'd like freak out because you talk to them about who you're a fan of, and it's like, this is important.
Yeah.
This is how you maintain relevance, is by being cool with people and keeping a good reputation and not being so out of reach of people. I think it's important, because if you don't respect your fan base, then you're not going to have one for long. And
Right. Yeah. You have to realize that you're there, like you're having your success because of them.
right,
And go ahead.
you're right. Without them, like, there is no you. Like, your career is, you're back to working like whatever job, and
Yeah.
because they're the ones that make this affordable for you and feasible for you to do it, right? And they're already going to be quick enough to turn on you, for
Yes.
whatever reason. Ask Metallica, right? How many times have their fans kind of bailed on them? Right? Put out a music video,
Yeah.
sellouts. Do Nothing Else
Yeah.
Matters, sellouts. That got really weird when Nothing Else Matters came out, and it was like teachers started liking Metallica, and then people were like, screw them. Like, it's not their Metallica anymore, it's everybody's, right? And then they didn't like it, so they turned on them for that. Then, of course, the Napster thing was the big one, where it's like,
Yeah.
that got crazy. But it's like, you have to understand, at the end of the day, that was a scary time for musicians, because you wouldn't want to go to, like, say, your factory job or whatever, bust your ass, and then be like, all right, thanks for the volunteer work, you're not getting paid.
Right. Yeah. It's like the deal is, I do this, and then I make a product, and that product goes for sale, and then you buy it or you don't buy it. You don't steal it from me.
Right.
I mean, Lars wasn't wrong.
Right.
Technically, it's just that people were pissed because he's a multi-millionaire, and like, why is he out there saying, "Oh, you can't take my songs," when he's got a nice home, and he's got all the money in the world and everything he wants. People don't understand that it's not Metallica that he's out there fighting for. It's technically, it's all the people that are barely making things happen, financially, because you're not buying the music. And it's the small bands that really need that sale.
And the industry as a whole, because if there's no, like, way of it being a lucrative business venture for anybody, because at the end of the day,
Right.
you may be doing it for all the right reasons, but you still got to live, so therefore that requires a paycheck. So,
Right. It's the music business.
right. It's going to,
It's a business.
right. And nobody had a problem with buying records and things like that until they were introduced to the idea of, what if I gave it to you for nothing?
Right. I think it started with cassettes, because that was before Napster. You could get a cassette,
Right.
you could copy it and give it to your friend. That was like the early days of that. And then 'cause I remember actually, like, I had a few cassettes, but it was like, I grew up right at the end of the cassettes. Like, it was I don't think I ever bought a cassette, but I had a few cassettes, and most of my cassettes were the ones you record with.
Right.
It was either to record something from something else, or to record myself, because I had like a little recorder. And so, of course, that with the digital, it developed into people downloading not just songs, but downloading movies and downloading everything.
Right.
On video games and everything, just for free, and no one can stop them. And the music industry basically said, well, we have nothing we can't offer you to buy it digitally, so what do you because we don't accept it. So when they finally said, okay, we're going to have iTunes, we're going to have a way for you to buy it, I think that at least it shifted in a better direction. At least there's something that they can buy.
Right.
But at the point we're at now, I don't think people really buy albums digitally. I think that most people use streaming. They listen to, you pay a monthly fee or not, and that's how you listen to music. You got Spotify or Apple Music. I think that's how people listen to music for the most part.
Right. I mean,
no subscription.
Yeah, I personally still like buying I want the cover art. I want all the cool, things that come with it.
Well, but that's the thing, though. That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a physical thing you can look at.
Right, and look through it and appreciate the art that was put into the cover. And, but it's kind of funny because when the Napster thing happened, I remember borrowing CDs that I couldn't afford at the time from friends and taping them as I listened to it. And I was like, dude, I was Napster before Napster pissed people off,
Right.
But, but when I could afford the CD, I'd go buy it because I preferred that sound quality anyway. It's faster, it's smoother, it's, you get the cover.
You can select the tracks.
Right.
Which I thought was great.
Rewinding and fast forwarding and like, I went too far and, all this.
Yeah. It's like, okay, 30 seconds back. Okay, is that it? No, that's not it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It was so different, but you still wanted the actual copy when you could afford to buy it. So it wasn't so bad. But now it's just like it's almost like shoplifting becomes legal. You know what I mean? It's just.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. But yeah, I loved CDs because it's like having the booklet and just having lyrics. Because nowadays, like if you listen to a song on Spotify, you don't have the lyrics. I mean, you can Google it and everything, but I like the work they put into the booklet and the designs and everything. Because a lot of the album covers look great. They're beautiful, and it started out with the vinyls and which are coming back. People do like buying vinyl, and because I guess they like hearing something that has a sound, and you get this big, 12-inch cover that looks, it looks nice. You get a lot of detail, and that's cool.
Right.
It's not just a digital file on your computer or it's an app that plays it for you. You actually have something you can physically touch.
Right. I think it was Scott Page I was
nice.
talking to about that, where I said I really want to get back into buying vinyls again because I just think that in a lot of ways too, there's a lot of bands I find that probably realistically their sound was better suited for vinyl because that was what they intended when they recorded. And I think certain bands probably just sound better on vinyl with all that crackling and that it just sounds less polished. It sounds more like real and raw and not fake. It's things that are too polished and too perfect just seem too fabricated at a certain point. And I think vinyls have that cool charm to them in a sense.
It's imperfect.
Right, just that weird little hissing sound that kind of comes with it, and it's funny too. If you go from CDs back to tapes, it's so much slower. It sounds like really slow, and it's like, what the hell? This song's not that laggy because you're used to the CD version where it's sped up, and it's just we never noticed that with tapes before until we had something to compare it to. But then when you go back, I think, to vinyls, you really appreciate it more, maybe than we did back when they were all we had,
Yeah, I mean, like when I was putting out my Firestorm album, I made, like, we actually were talking about, like, should we put it out on vinyl? And the answer was yes, because people do like vinyl, and I guess statistically speaking, people buy more vinyl than they buy CDs. So nobody really buys CDs, but people do really like vinyl. So we actually did like a double vinyl because hey, it's a long album and that ensures the best quality, and it's kind of fun to hear your own music on a vinyl because it has its own sound and it's a special thing. It's really fun.
Especially when you're born in like the 90s too, that's gonna kind of sound like it's got to be almost like a time machine for you in some sort of way, right? to hear.
Well, I will point out that my dad loves vinyl, so he has a pretty good vinyl collection. So I actually kind of grew up with vinyl, even though it wasn't, current at the time.
Right.
It's he loves it. He loves listening to vinyl, and he's got mostly classical albums, but he's got some 80s albums, and it's fun. Like that sound is something special.
Right, but I mean, to like hear your work on vinyl, that's got to be cool.
But yeah, and in terms of like the development of hearing other people's vinyls and then hearing my own work, my own songs, my own voice on vinyl is definitely really cool. It's really awesome, and it was mastered by Bernie Grundman, who's the best mastering engineer out there. So, it's a great product.
Yeah, that's really cool to have that. It's I find it's always the little things like that where it's such a trip, and just to hear all your favorite bands on vinyl, then you get to hear your own work and on vinyl, and it's like, that's cool because now you got something to compare with your influences and the things you grew up with, and it's like to put yourself in that conversation is pretty cool. Even when I started doing this show, it was really weird to have people from bands that I grew up listening to, like, here's my number, text me, and it's like, that's so strange to me still, you know what I mean? And it's like, or to even be brought up in the same conversation as other people that have done so well in their industry, just blows my mind. And it's been nuts, And even last night at like 11:30 at night, I got a text from Eileen and said, I got more people for you if you can make time for them. I'm like, of course, right?
Oh yeah.
And then, I was like, I appreciate you, man, hooking me up with more people to bring on. And she's like, dude, from what I'm hearing from like every single person from Pink Floyd and whatever other bands that I've had, come onto your show, she's like, you, from what all of them say, are the best interviewer on the planet. So I appreciate you. And I'm like, whoa, that's weird, dude. That's really heavy. That's pretty high praise. It's like no pressure though, right?
Yeah, she was saying nice things about you to me this morning.
Crazy. And I just feel like, and I'm not knocking like any other method of doing things. It's just, I feel that the whole Q&A, like ask a question, give them like 3 seconds to answer, and then ask another one. It's so robotic, and it just seems so redundant. It's done to death. I find it gets boring. I've been on the receiving end of it with my career, and it's just like, man, you're not the first person to ask me these things. I feel like organic conversation is just kind of better. And I find that the fans of the people that I have on appreciate it more, because then they feel like they get to know you as a person, and then they're more like, enthralled with the idea of supporting somebody that they feel they got to know a little bit. It's just cool, you know what I mean? It's less boring, I find.
Yeah. Well, and it's also that sometimes interviews are kind of like you're going down a list, and there's no follow-up questions. So if you say, well, I did something and it was very, very interesting, there's no follow-up to what you just said. It's just, okay, next question.
Right.
And it's like, well, okay. I'm done with that.
It's like, it's
better to like, we're actually listening to each other, and that's important.
Right. Rather than listening to react, you're listening to understand, where you're right. When it's a list of questions, it's like, oh, that reminds me of, something very similar to that topic. It's like, yeah, that's cool. So anyway, and the next question.
Exactly.
It's just,
I've been there. I've done that. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the worst. And it's just, I don't know. It just bores me as a viewer, let alone the person doing it, or being on the receiving end of the questions. And it's like, don't ask if you don't care. Just
right. Yeah. I mean, it's like, if you want to do these really quick questions and just go boop, 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 I can understand if you're making like a 1-minute video or something, or a 2-minute video for something on the news or something. But if you want like an in-depth interview, there has to be a conversation. That's important.
Right. And I know, in a lot of cases, I'm aware that it's not even the interviewer that makes these decisions, that they have somebody telling them what they have to
Right.
ask and things like that, even though
That's true.
you've probably seen interviews before doing your own that they've already asked this question time and time again. And now you got to go into it asking that same damn thing. And, I think somebody recently said, I go into it like it may be somebody's first time hearing the answer, or maybe their perspective will be different when they hear the answer and they take it a different way or whatever. Leland, he was saying, I didn't get tired of playing the same song every night because there might be somebody out there that's hearing it for the first time, and you got to remember that. So it's like, all right, that's fair. But I feel with organic conversation, it's more enjoyable for everybody involved, and you just get these little gems. And I find that you really get to, like Sherry Nelson told me that she listened to my show with Stephen Perkins and said, you really got him. He was on our show, and like you really got him to open up about things he never talked to us about. Like he never brought up. It's like you just got him going. Like you drew that out of him, and sometimes I think that's the coolest thing. Is you might have someone that's a complete introvert, and they may have a bajillion stories, but not really a big talker. But then you get them opened up, and they just want to talk about everything. I had Howard Bloom on, who was the PR guy for Michael Jackson, Prince, Aerosmith, Billy Idol, like everybody under the sun. And, I told Cher, I said, you may hear my voice maybe 3 times on that show because he was just nonstop stories. We went on for like 2 hours, and it was his show that day, and it was all good. It's like such fascinating stories and never even scratched the surface. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So it was
those are the best interviews when it just goes on, and then you never know when to stop.
Right, and I always like tell people like, yeah, I respect your time. I don't want to take much of it. But with him, it was just, he just wanted to go. You know what I mean? He just wanted to keep going. And then he lost track of time. He's like, man, I got like all these other, shows to do and things of that nature and business calls. And so all right, well, that's cool, man. We just pounded out 2 hours worth. It's, we didn't plan on, and it was just a lot of really cool stories, but it was like from the beginning of his career, it's like he didn't even touch on the majority of the people that he worked with. So,
right, yeah.
So that's going to be like a mini series with this guy because he's coming back at some point. It's just going to be like, here's another 2 hours of my time working with Billy Idol and what a handful that was. And then 2 more hours about Prince and 2 more hours about, Hendrix or whoever. Right. But it's insane, but it's been fun as hell. So really interesting people, so I find if you have just organic conversation with people, you'd be surprised what you might learn that you're not going to from a Q&A session.
Right, exactly.
So what do you got going on?
Where it's going to go.
Right. What do you got going on these days?
Well, these are strange times. So kind of working at home. So it was actually something that I started doing before the pandemic started. So I started making covers. So the first one I made was Pink Floyd, Comfortably Numb.
Oh, that's cool.
And I've been making about one every month. And that's been keeping me busy and keeping me sane during these crazy times. So I've been feeling good about that. I've also started, because I can't perform, I've been doing a Twitch show every Tuesday, and I call it Rock and Roll Tuesdays. And it's just 2 hours of me playing music, playing guitar, singing, and people come in, they might request something, or they want to hear a certain artist or a certain song. And of course, I have a lot of things prepared. I'll do some of my own songs, and it's just been a lot of fun. It's probably developed some new fans, or I have for sure, because of it. And I've probably reached out to people that I wouldn't have reached out to otherwise, because when I normally play, I play for, this crowd at this club, and then I play for this people at a festival or whatever it is. And so it's just been very interesting. It's been a lot of fun, and I've been also using it to sort of to show the new cover, because every time I make a cover, I make a video. So like it's been like a nice opportunity to show the video, live. It's like a premiere almost,
I love that, and Twitch is so cool. I mean, I
love Twitch.
Yeah, I've been kind of playing with the idea of going down that route, at least on occasional shows when I have a certain guest or whatever. That because it gives people that opportunity to maybe ask questions at a certain segment in the show live.
Right, ask them live. Yeah.
In real time, get their answer from them rather than me asking them, or
or nobody asking.
Right, you know what I mean? So I just think that's a pretty cool route to go. So I'm probably going to start utilizing that and see how that works out, kind of a trial run, I guess, and see how that turns out. And I think it's better than YouTube, honestly.
I know that people have different opinions about it, but I think Twitch is good for like doing something that is new and something that people haven't necessarily seen before, because there's a lot of people that are just looking for random things. With YouTube YouTube is good if you already have a lot of subscribers and they're already like because I've been looking at some of the people that get, they have like over 1 million subscribers. They still only get maybe a few thousand people watching them when they go live. So you have to have like that number is so crazy. But with Twitch, there's more people that will watch you if they are following you. So it's just and there's a lot of random people. I always get new people who just want to check it out, and sometimes they're like, oh, this is really cool, and and they stick around for a long time. Other times they may watch the show and they might follow or not. I mean, it's up to them. But it's I feel like Twitch is just there's more exploration. People are just looking for something to entertain them for a while, and you might be it.
Right. It's actually really funny too. I was kind of thinking it almost reminds me of a more modern version of like the old Yahoo chat rooms or something, where it's like people poke their head in and see what's going on in here. All right.
Yeah. What's this?
Yeah. They'll either stay or they'll catch a conversation or something that's really caught their eye, and they're like, all right, this is cool. Or they'll leave and go check out another room and see what's going on in there. It's just so weird.
Right.
Whereas YouTube, it's just like there's no interaction. It's just, you watch this or you don't. Right. And then YouTube's got all the issues now with like viewer suppression. They fudge the numbers a little bit and make it look like you don't have as many as you do, and you could catch it at times where it's like it'll say X amount of views, and then you refresh it and it'll drop. It'll be like, oh no, it wasn't 149, it was 79. Bullshit. It's really weird. And sometimes if you open it in 2 different tabs, you'll get 2 different numbers for the same video at the same time. So
it's they keep changing stuff with YouTube. I think YouTube was probably better the way it was before. Like they've gotten very, very. There's a lot of rules and things you have to follow, and everything is like super. Like every year they add something that makes it more complicated, and less enjoyable to be there. So I don't know.
It's very complicated now for sure. I remember getting the notification about how you have to specify now whether or not your channel's for kids, and if so, you're not going to get targeted advertising for kids anymore. And it's like, dude, in the 80s, like cartoons were just a 30-minute advertisement for toys. It's all it was, and like every commercial in the 80s was typically directed at kids on weekends and things like that during cartoons. That's just the way the business was. And now YouTube's like, we're not allowed to do that anymore, and you won't get monetization if your channel is directed at children.
Yeah, it's strange, but I just gotta live with it.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time, brother. I don't want to take up more of it, but you got anything you want to like promote?
I think I can mention my social media, which is Rocky Kramer on everything except Facebook, which is Rocky Kramer Official. YouTube is Rocky Kramer. Twitch is Rocky Kramer, and tune in on Tuesdays for Rock and Roll Tuesdays, 7 p.m. Pacific. If that is a good time for you who's watching this. That's about it.
They'll have to figure that out. You could just Google it and find out what the time zone difference is.
Yeah. Just go to rockykramer.com. That should help you in most cases.
There you go. Well, thanks, man, for your time. And
yeah. Hey, thanks for having me.
Anytime you want to come back, man, feel free. Let me know, and it'd be awesome. And I'll let you know if I end up getting into the whole Twitch thing, and see if you want to come back for that, and have people get that opportunity to ask questions.
Right. Yeah, that would be cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Yes. Well, you have a good day.
Yeah, you too, man. It's been fun as hell.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that was fun.
Have a good one, man.
All right. Take care.
You too.
So that was Rocky Kramer, man. What a cool guy. I mean, honestly, he's obviously younger than myself. I'm an 80s kid. But what a cool guy. And just to get to know him a little bit, know his influences, know his take as a musician on his experiences with the industry, it's kind of eye-opening. You know, I felt like I had a little bit of a thumb on the pulse of the industry being famous and what have you. I feel like our industries aren't that different, but you know, they do have their differences, of course. And I feel like, you know, he was really able to enlighten me, which I thought was cool, and kind of validate some of the things that I felt were true based on his experience as well. So it was a good conversation. I welcome him back anytime. He was actually a great guest, and I really wish I wasn't so backlogged with guests that that took so long to release, because he really deserves the exposure, and I don't think he needs it, but you know, he's doing quite well for himself. If you look him up, he's great. I think he's found his own. He's good. He doesn't need my show to boost him, you know, definitely not. I think he's just it's another feather in his cap, if anything. Maybe not even that. Maybe it's just something to kill time. Who knows? I mean, he does well. We both do well. But it was a pleasure to talk to him and follow each other on social media, things like that. See what he's up to. He's a really cool guy. He's definitely a really interesting cat. He's had a very similar life to my own in just different ways, but you know, loss and things of that nature have kind of been the theme of our lives, so I can relate. We didn't get into that on the show, but you know, that I didn't want the show to be a bring down, so it is what it is, man. But I think we have that in common as people, and I can relate to people like that. So I had a blast talking to him. He's just a cool guy, and I hope you enjoyed the show. And in the meantime, until the next one, and there will be others, trust me, there's still more coming. They'll probably be released today too, so I'll catch your asses later, man. Thanks again, always, for the support. I love y'all, man.